Yes, I am also planning on making track ranking videos for Crash Nitro Kart and Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, so you can consider this the first video in a planned trilogy.
Oops. Anyway, Crash Nitro Kart. You remember that game? You don't? Well, for those who don't know, Crash Nitro Kart is the spiritual successor to Crash Team Racing, released in 2003 for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. I actually just replayed it for the first time in a while as part of my subathon on Twitch where I was 100%ing every Crash game, and to be honest, Crash Nitro Kart was so much more fun than I was expecting it to be. Sure, it's not quite as blisteringly fast as Crash Team Racing, and the physics can be a bit wonky and rough around the edges, but all in all, I had a good time with it. The mechanics of CTR were translated over rather well. I like the full CGI cutscenes in the game's adventure mode, and Velo is a genuinely cool, menacing villain, and it's got an absolute banger of a main theme. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We want to talk about the tracks. Well, I'm happy to say that those are great too, despite the fact that there's only 13 of them. Yeah, for some reason, each hub world only contains 3 tracks compared to CTR's 4, and as opposed to that game having 2 extra tracks in Turbo Track and Slide Coliseum, CNK only has 1 in Hyper Spaceway. Not really sure why they decided to cut down the number of tracks outside of potential development constraints, but as long as the tracks themselves are good, I can look past it. I do think a lot of the tracks in this game really hit their stride when they were brought back in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled and therefore had a better engine to work with, but even in their original appearance here, they're pretty strong. Hell, some of them are more interesting due to the existence of anti-gravity, which wasn't brought over to NF. Just remember that Crash did it about 11 years before Mario Kart did. So, you know the drill. I'm going to take the 13 tracks in Crash Nitro Kart and rank them from my least favorite to favorite. As a reminder that this is all my opinion, and with that, let's get started. Ruined! Going into Crash Nitro Kart, I actually wasn't sure what track I was going to have at the bottom, but after playing through it again, yeah, the worst track is definitely Barren Ruins. Visually, it's not that bad. I think the idea of racing through some ruins on an alien planet is pretty cool. I like the snowy environment and the robots that walk around the track, but man, if there's any track in the game where the physics really don't like to cooperate, it's this one. The road is so jagged that it's incredibly easy to lose your momentum, which makes a lot of the jumps in the shortcut at the end pretty miserable to try and consistently do without losing any speed. And while I'm generally fond of a lot of the anti-gravity in this game, the tunnel near the end that has it on this track just feels very awkward to drive on. I still wouldn't go as far as to say that this is a terrible track though. I think the overall consistency of track quality in CNK is pretty high, but Barren Ruins is overall a pretty mediocre one, so there isn't much else to say.
Let's boogie! You know how every kart racer has that one track that's just kind of there? Like you forget it's a thing, and then you get to it and you're like, oh yeah, this is a track that exists.
Jungle Boogie is the track in Crash Nitro Kart that, to me, is just kind of there. I certainly don't think that badly of it, which really says a lot about the overall track quality of CNK. The fact that there's only one track ranked lower than the whatever track really shows how solid the game's suite of tracks really is. I just said track a lot. But yeah, this track is fine. It's vibrant, the layout is decent, although quite basic, which is fine for the second track in the game, and I like that there's a small shortcut you can take if you gain enough speed to reach up to where it is. But that's about all I can really say about it. Lush jungles are cool and all, but this is Crash Bandicoot. I've lost count of the number of times I've seen the series use that set piece by this point. It's not bad, just kind of unoriginal. Especially for a game whose entire plot is about the cast being kidnapped and forced to race on alien planets. So yeah, Jungle Boogie is just whatever.
My body is a temple, and I'm not taking that shit!
Tiny Temple just confuses me. Like I just said, the game's cast has been forced to race on alien planets, and yet there's just a whole ass temple dedicated to Tiny? The adventure mode sort of explains this, since Krunk tells the Bandicoots after he loses that Terra actually copied Earth, and at the end of Team Cortex's story, they get warped to what appears to be Terra, and the inhabitants there have a deity-like worship of Tiny. So I guess that makes sense. Wait, I just found out while writing this, but apparently the Komodo Bros appear in Jungle Boogie. But they're not even in the game! Why is Tiny the only character that gets a whole ass track to himself? Where's, I don't know, Coco Volcano? That aside, I don't really find Tiny Temple to be all that interesting. Its layout is basic, just like the other Hub 1 tracks, but as far as aesthetics go, it might stand out even less than Jungle Boogie. Like, a nighttime temple? We already had that in CTR. Wait, did they just copy Tiger Temple? The biggest thing that made me put Tiny Temple over Jungle Boogie was the fact that it's the first track to introduce two of CNK's core gimmicks. The first is the exclamation mark crates that trigger hazards on certain tracks and can be used to catch opposing racers in nasty traps. In this case, it changes which side of the fork in the path has flames coming out of their tiki heads. Wait, this is Tiger Temple! The other gimmick, of course, is the first instance of anti-gravity, with the corkscrew towards the end introducing the player to it. That alone was honestly enough to put Tiny Temple above Jungle Boogie for me, but outside of that, it's just kind of another whatever track.
Can I copy your homework? No, you can't copy my homework! There is bitches!
Alright, look, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking inspiration from a previous game, but this is literally Crash Cove. This is kind of a thing with a good number of the tracks in CNK. You can tell that they were heavily inspired by tracks that existed in CTR. But Inferno Island has to be the most blatant example. It's on a beach. There's a ship. There's a singular ramp midway through, a bridge you drive over. There's even a damn shortcut that you reach by doing a jump at just the right time with just the right amount of speed. The one thing that's unique is this cool little cave area towards the end. Oh, come on! There's a side ramp with an item crate. I reiterate, this is literally Crash Cove. The utter lack of originality aside, the biggest thing that keeps Inferno Island from ranking lower is that I do still like the vibes of this track. It's hard to go wrong with a beach, and to me it sticks out far more than the jungle aesthetic of Jungle Boogie and Tiny Temple. And while it's an uninspired early track, it's not actively harmful like Barren Ruins. But again, it's literally Crash Cove.
That's right, there was always like assembly, and then there was like that second assembly.
Going strictly off my experience in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, I've never really been the biggest fan of Assembly Lane. But I found myself enjoying it more than I expected when revisiting the original version of Crash Nitro Kart. I think this is mostly because it stands out aesthetically a good bit more in Nitro Kart than it does in Nitro Fueled. As we're going to talk about soon enough, a lot of the tracks in Nitro Kart do look a bit samey, especially in the back half, so Assembly Lane actually sticks out quite well compared to all of those tracks. I still have it below all of said tracks though, because ultimately I still don't find it to be that interesting. Its trap is painfully easy to avoid, and while I do think the option of a faster but riskier conveyor belt path instead of the safer but windier normal path midway through is neat, the occasional wonkiness of Nitro Kart's physics make it feel a bit awkward to use effectively. Not quite as badly as Barren Ruins, but still noticeably. The anti-gravity section at the end also definitely feels like one of the more tacked-on instances of the mechanic. Like, this could have just been a normal part of the track like it is in Nitro Fueled, and I don't think it'd make a difference. Yeah, I don't know. Assembly Lane is fine, I guess. I just think there's a lot of better tracks.
I like trains.
Android Alley is one of those tracks I just talked about that aesthetically looks very similar to a few other ones, and in my opinion it does suffer a bit because of that compared to how utterly gorgeous it would later end up looking in the future. Like, just compare how it looks in this game to how it looks in Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, and it's night and day. That aside though, this track is still pretty neat. It has a nice, challenging layout with a lot of sharp turns that you'd expect from a late game course, and the shortcut through the building if you're able to build up enough speed to crash through the windows is a pretty tough one to get enough momentum for, but very rewarding when pulled off due to how much it cuts out. But of course, we all know the most memorable thing about Android Alley: the train. This thing is an absolute behemoth, flattening anyone who crosses its path and locking them through a pretty lengthy animation. It even functions more as falling off the track than it does getting hit by a hazard, since even a mask won't protect you from it. I actually find that kind of weird and a bit annoying, but who am I to question the almighty godlike powers of the train? I think I could have seen this track go one spot higher if it just looked a bit nicer aesthetically, but it at least has a lot of other things going for it despite that setback.
That's a meteor! Look, and it's headed straight for us!
Meteor Gorge is pretty cool. God damn it! Meteor Gorge is pretty neat. The snowy aesthetic, ice patches, and small hills strikingly remind me of Polar Pass, but not in a way where it's directly copying the track like Inferno Island did with Crash Cove, so it still manages to have its own identity. I really like the heavy snowfall that's going on as well. That was a super nice touch. The magma that coats the outside of the track around the shortcut, along with the two narrow cliffs on the sides of the big jump at the start of the track, also help it stick out more. I don't know if I really have more to say about it, to be honest. I just think it's neat. Thunderstruck is probably the track that makes the single best use out of the zero gravity mechanic in this game. The fact that a huge portion of the track has you doing loops, all while the rain that's pouring the whole time follows suit and starts falling upside down from the player's perspective, is honestly so sick. Combine that with a really engaging and challenging layout, some creepy as hell architecture, and rotating spike logs on the anti-gravity sections, and you've got a recipe for an utterly fantastic track. So what's keeping it just outside of my top 5? Well, take a look at Thunderstruck, now take a look at Android Alley. Yeah, Thunderstruck is unfortunately one of the tracks with that bland, samey aesthetic going on. And look, yes, I get that the skyboxes are different, and both tracks have pretty great ones, but like, why is everything so yellow? I think a different color for the track could have gone a long way in upping the eerie factor of it, and probably would have pushed it very close to the top of the list. That's really my only complaint though, everything else about Thunderstruck is pretty incredible.
Life under the sea is better than anything they got up there.
If Thunderstruck has the best overall use of anti-gravity out of any of the tracks in the game, then Deep Sea Driving is a pretty close second place. From the opening fork that sends you through a corkscrew to the later portion that has you straight up traveling through a tube, they absolutely nailed the use of the mechanic here. Also, the rotating fan blade thingies aren't a total hitbox nuisance here like they are in Nitro Fueled. The vibes on Deep Sea Driving are also completely on point, alternating between caves with immaculate lighting and aquarium-like sections where you can see the ocean floor around you. It's all just really divine. And I know I haven't been talking about the game's soundtrack too much, but if any track in the game utilizes its background song to really sell the mood of the track, it's Deep Sea Driving. Like, just take a listen. It really just makes you feel like you're on an underwater adventure. Yeah, I just love everything about this track. It says a lot that I feel like the Nitro Fueled version is a pretty noticeable downgrade, and yet even that version I think is great. The original version in Nitro Kart is just amazing.
Electron.
From the moment you start the race and experience an absolutely colossal drop, to the moment that the long turbo section transitions into a sick anti-gravity section, to the moment you go through all of the twists and turns this track throws at you, you just know that Electron Avenue is something special. But first, let's just get my one negative out of the way. Look at this track, now look at Android Alley. Yeah, it's the same yellow aesthetic. However, I give Electron Avenue much more of a pass here. Yes, a good chunk of the track is that same yellow road that we've already seen twice now, but a lot of it also isn't. The anti-gravity sections are this nice, vibrant purple, complete with alternating turbo pads to keep you on your toes. The background also sticks out way more here, with the buildings in the city surrounding you being much more in the forefront. Also, Android Alley and Electron Avenue both exist on the same planet, Techni, so I think that is a valid excuse for them looking similar. I just don't know what Thunderstruck's excuse is. That aside, everything else about Electron Avenue is just fantastic. Like the two tracks I mentioned previously, it makes wonderful use of the anti-gravity mechanic, and it has a lot of nice twists and turns and hazards that keep the track fun and challenging. I do kinda wish the electric fences weren't so easy to dodge, since you are basically always guaranteed to dodge them if you take a ramp, but it's a pretty minor issue in my opinion. Yeah, this track is just so good. It says a lot that I only have it at number 4 on the list, especially if you followed me long enough and know how much I gush about the Nitro Fueled version of it, but that just speaks volumes to how good I think the remaining 3 tracks are.
Time's up, SpongeBob.
When you think of the anti-gravity in Crash Nitro Kart, what's the first thing that comes to mind? It's the clocking out of time, isn't it? Like, come on, it's even on the North American box art. That aside, I think the rest of the track has a really nice, cozy, American Midwest vibe to it, similar to Dingo Canyon in CTR and the motorcycle levels in Crash 3. I know I didn't think highly of Dingo Canyon in my CTR track ranking, but it didn't have a giant clock. The track layout itself also has a good number of tight turns and opportunities for shortcuts that keep it pretty engaging, but the star of the show is definitely going up the clock with anti-gravity. Other tracks might make better use of the mechanic across more parts of their layouts, but the clock in Out of Time is definitely the most memorable. You just cannot have Out of Time without the part where you go up the clock tower. Oh no.
You savages will learn fear, just as millions have before you.
It almost doesn't feel fair to compare the other tracks in the game to Hyper Spaceway. This absolute juggernaut of a track sets the bar for final tracks so absurdly high that I don't know if I can even think of another that matches it. Maybe Rainbow Road in Mario Kart World, but that game isn't even a year old. Crash Nitro Kart is 22 years old. Oh god, my back. Anyway, Hyper Spaceway is an absolutely colossal track, full of constant teleporting to new areas, crazy twists and turns, heavy use of anti-gravity, a really big shortcut that's very difficult to maintain the right speed for, and some really dangerous hazards. And it is so incredible in its execution of all of it. It perfectly fills the role of final challenge in the game and fits perfectly as the domain of Emperor Velo, a truly dangerous and menacing opponent. I also love how the track's background music takes Velo's leitmotif that plays throughout the game's cutscenes, gives it an epic and dramatic spin, and makes it the main melody. It's just absolutely perfect. Is the track on the long side? Yeah, it tends to push 6 minutes because of that, but I'll be damned if it isn't so worth it for how absolutely incredible the track is. Hyper Spaceway, by all accounts, is an extremely strong contender for the best track in the game. But there is one other that I like just a little bit more.
I was cured, alright.
There was no other choice. Well, maybe Hyper Spaceway, but in my professional opinion, Clockwork Wumpa clears every other track in Crash Nitro Kart. Where do I even start? I just love everything there is about the track. From the sharp turns and sick clock tower aesthetic that harken back to Cortex Castle, to the abundance of cogs that serve as both obstacles for the player to avoid, as well as platforms that let you take a shortcut, the extremely effective trap in the middle that opens a giant trap door that's hard to avoid, a ramp that takes you to another shortcut, and a giant drop at the end that's very similar to the one you see later on in Electron Avenue, this track just has it all. And on top of that, it's backed by what is easily my favorite song in all of Crash Nitro Kart. It's fast-paced, it's exciting, it's catchy, it adds so much to the genuine thrill I have every time I race on this track. There's nothing else I need to say. Clockwork Wumpa is just incredible. It's perfect. It is without a shadow of a doubt my favorite track in Crash Nitro Kart. And that's my ranking for Crash Nitro Kart. Even though there aren't as many tracks in this game compared to CTR, I think the overall quality is still very solid. I guess up next will be Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. Hopefully you all won't be waiting a year for that one to drop. I mean, after all, it's not like there's any other Crash racing game that I forgot to talk about.
Uh-oh.
Thank you all so much for watching. If you're new to the channel and would like to see more Crash content like this, please consider subscribing. And if you're a returning viewer, I appreciate you coming back even with my still slow uploads. I recently started a part-time job that's eaten up a good bit of my time and energy, but I do have some newfound motivation in terms of video ideas thanks to my subathon that I just completed a few weeks ago. And on that note, if you would like to catch me live between video uploads, consider following me on Twitch. I mostly stream Crash speedruns, but I do occasionally play other games from time to time. So if that interests you at all, please consider giving me a follow. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time.